Some books are forgotten, others are silenced. Not because they failed to matter, but because they mattered too much. There once was a text, quietly passed from seeker to seeker, not loud, not forceful, just impossibly clear. It didn't promise miracles or riches. It whispered something more dangerous, that you already hold the map, that inside you, beneath the noise, is a field of energy waiting to be remembered. Not taught, remembered. They tried to erase it not from libraries, but from memory, because if enough people remember, the system forgets how to hold control. But this isn't about rebellion, it's about return. So the question becomes, if you held that map now, the one drawn in symbols of vibration and breath, would you open it? Would you trust it? This isn't a journey to master the universe. It's an invitation to sit beside yourself again, to feel the pulse that never left. Because maybe the erased book was never lost. Maybe it's been breathing with you all along. Most of us grow up under the subtle assumption that life is something done to us. We're taught to respond, to follow the currents, to ride the tides of circumstance. We learn to chase the latest self-help myth, think positively, visualize success, speak affirmations. But what if the real truth is far quieter, more powerful, and much closer to home? What if you are not merely receiving life, you are emitting it? Think of every interaction you've had today. The barista who smiled at you, the co-worker who seemed distant, the stranger on the street who avoided your gaze. These aren't just isolated moments. They are echoes of your internal field, reflections of the signal you are broadcasting. And that signal isn't in your words. It isn't in your carefully crafted affirmations. It resides in the subtle frequency of your energy. Perhaps you've said, "I am calm." Yet beneath that statement, there's a tremor of worry. Or maybe you've affirmed, "I am worthy," while the ache of unworthiness still flickers in your thoughts. That hum, quiet, almost inaudible, is what the universe hears. That's what shapes the quality of your day. This isn't about dismissing positivity. It's about recognizing its limits. The universe doesn't answer affirmations. It responds to your being. And when your being is discordant, no amount of practiced mantras will align the field. Have you ever sensed tension in a room before anyone spoke? A heaviness so subtle yet undeniable. That's not your imagination, it's resonance. And resonance happens every moment of your day, from the coffee shop line to the boardroom meeting to the final sigh before sleep. It's happening whether you're awake to it or not, because you are the transmitter. The ancient Hermetic wisdom speaks of what it calls the law of vibration. Everything vibrates. Everything. That includes you. It's not what you say that shifts reality. It's the energy you are. What are you sending into the field today? Let me share a simple story. A friend once walked into a gathering feeling drained. She smiled and said all the right things, but within minutes people began steering away from her. Not because she said something wrong, but because her signal whispered exhaustion. The next day, she came in breathing deeply, eyes soft, pulse steady. She didn't say much yet. People floated toward her, as if drawn to a gentle flame. That's resonance in action. Now imagine doing this consciously, not erratically, not forcing it into your mind, but gently tuning in. Perhaps you breathe in the morning asking, "Am I broadcasting hope or tension, trust or fear?" Then you give yourself permission to shift, timing your breath, softening your posture, releasing the grip of unspoken worry. You don't need a checklist to reset your frequency. You need awareness. You need compassion toward the parts of you still trembling. Because until you feel the tremor, you cannot adjust the tone. Until you witness the noise, you cannot attain your note of coherence. So tonight, before you drift into sleep, take a moment. Rest your palm over your heart. Feel your chest rise and fall. Let the silence speak. Let your breath carry you back to the center. Listen to the quiet hum beneath the stories. That hum is your signal, and it is always broadcasting, always drawing back what vibrates in harmony. Your life is not random. It isn't a string of disconnected events. It is a symphony, and you are the score. Every sigh, every intention, every flicker of emotion contributes to the resonance you send and the resonance you receive. Because in the end, life doesn't happen to you. You are not a passive receiver. You are the signal, and the world mirrors back whatever frequency you claim. Not all thoughts are loud. Some whisper so faintly, You barely notice them, like a breeze brushing past your skin. But even the softest thought carries a ripple. And when it ripples enough times, it becomes a wave. That wave becomes your signal. And your signal becomes your life. We tend to believe that thoughts are private, harmless. A passing worry, a flash of judgment, a silent complaint. It's just in my head, we say. But here's the truth most never consider. Thought is energy. And energy does not stay still. It moves, it resonates, it transmits. There is no such thing as a harmless thought. Because each one, no matter how fleeting, generates a frequency. Not because you said it aloud, but because the field, that invisible fabric connecting everything, listens beyond words. It listens to resonance. You've probably experienced this. You walk into a room with a friend who says, "I'm fine," but something feels off. You can feel the static, the tightness in their breath, the way their smile doesn't quite reach their eyes. That's not your imagination. That's your body recognizing incoherence, the mismatch between what's said and what's being. And chances are, you've been that person too, saying all the right things, repeating the affirmations, "I'm at peace, I'm in control." But underneath, 1,000 tiny fears tap the glass. And the signal the field picks up? Chaos dressed as calm. This is why the goal isn't to control your thoughts. It's not about policing your mind like a hallway monitor with a whistle. Control breeds tension. It creates a loop. The more you try to think good thoughts, the more pressure you feel to avoid the bad ones. And that pressure? That's the true signal. Not the thoughts themselves, but the quality of your relationship to them. So what's the alternative? Transparency, awareness. Becoming a space through which thought can move, not a cage in which thought gets trapped. Picture this. You're sitting with your eyes closed. A thought arises, "I'm not doing enough." Instead of pushing it away, you exhale. You watch it like a leaf floating across a still lake. You don't grab it. You don't judge it. You don't chase it. You just notice, that's here. And then you breathe. The breath is the anchor, not to stop the thought, but to hold space around it. The more you breathe, the more distance you create between you and the frequency of that thought. You shift from being inside it to observing it, like stepping out of a storm and watching the rain through a window. With practice, you begin to feel the weight of your thinking, not just the words, but the texture. Some thoughts feel light and clear, others feel sticky, heavy, buzzing with static. And once you can feel them, you can shift them, not by force, but by recognition. Let's bring this home. A man walks into a stressful meeting. He keeps repeating to himself, "Stay calm, stay calm." But the truth is, he's panicking. His chest is tight. His hands are cold. His mind is screaming with scenarios. And the more he tries to calm down, the more dissonance he creates, because the thought, "I must stay calm," is built on the belief, "I'm not calm enough." The field doesn't hear the words. It hears the fear behind them. Now imagine if he paused, placed his hand over his heart, took 3 slow breaths. Instead of trying to calm down, he simply noticed, there's fear here. That noticing that presence softens the grip. It lowers the volume. The thought becomes transparent, and the frequency changes. This is the real practice. Not fixing yourself, not correcting every stray worry, but becoming so present that no thought can hijack your frequency without your consent. Because once you see the ripple, you can shift the wave. Once you feel the vibration of a thought, you no longer have to be ruled by it. You become the space, not the story. And from that space, your life begins to reflect a different rhythm. Not because you forced it, but because you finally tuned in. Before you spoke your first word, before you opened your eyes to this world, you breathed. It happened without instruction, without thought. One inhale, one exhale, and in that rhythm, a contract was made. You are alive. You belong. You are already connected to something vast and unseen. But somewhere along the way, we forgot. We began treating breath as background noise, the silent engine of survival, something automatic, unimportant. We turned our attention outward, obsessed with words, goals, deadlines. The breath kept us alive, but we stopped letting it guide us. And yet, the ancients knew. In Hermetic wisdom, breath isn't just biology. It's the bridge between the physical and the energetic, between what you feel and what you become, between chaos and coherence. The breath is the forgotten code. It doesn't require belief, rituals, or translations. It requires presence. And when you truly return to it, not as an idea, but as an experience, something opens. You begin to remember that your breath is not separate from the field, that every inhale draws in more than oxygen, it brings in rhythm, frequency, intelligence. And every exhale is a release, not just of carbon dioxide, but of stories, fears, loops you no longer need. Breathe in awareness. Breathe out control. This is the first step, recognition. Just notice. No pressure to change anything. Can you feel where the breath begins in your body? Is it shallow, tight, slow? Where does it get stuck? Behind your chest? In your throat? Recognition is not judgment. It's a gentle hello to your nervous system. A reminder, I see you, I'm here now. Step 2, regulation. Once you feel it, you can shape it not forcefully, but lovingly. Let the breath slow down. Invite the inhale to go a little deeper. Let the exhale last a little longer. This isn't about counting or techniques. It's about pacing your energy like a wave, smooth, steady, reliable. The slower your breath, the wider your field becomes. You stop contracting, you start radiating. And finally, integration. Let breath become your language. Not a tool you use once a day, but a way of relating to everything. When tension arises, return. When joy bubbles up, savor it through breath. When confusion clouds your mind, anchor into the breath like a lighthouse through fog. In every tradition worth its salt, breath has been sacred. In Hebrew, ruach means both breath and spirit. In Sanskrit, prana. In Greek, pneuma. The message is always the same. Breath is life, force. And life, force is communication. So here's a quiet thought. What if your breath is the first language the universe used to speak to you? Not through thunder or visions, but through rhythm, through pulse, through the subtle whisper that says, you are not separate, you are part of the field. You are already home. This isn't poetry, it's physiology. Your breath regulates your nervous system. It influences your heartbeat, your brainwaves, your ability to respond instead of react. It is the steering wheel of your inner world. But more than that, it is a companion, always with you, never judging, never rushing, just waiting for you to notice. So, let me ask, did you hear your breath this morning? Not just feel it, hear it. The way it glides in, pauses, and flows out again like the ocean kissing the shore. If not, it's okay. You can begin now. One breath, one memory, one moment of return. Because every breath you take is an invitation to come home, to clear the noise, to let go of stories and sink into presence. Inhale, you're arriving. Exhale, you're letting go. This rhythm has been with you since the beginning, and it will be with you until the end. And in between, it's your secret language with life itself. Somewhere along the line, we were taught to fear our feelings. Anger was dangerous. Sadness meant weakness. Fear had to be conquered or hidden. So we learned to push things down, to manage, suppress, avoid. We became experts at pretending we're okay, while a quiet storm brews underneath. But what if purification doesn't mean removal? What if it means illumination? In Hermetic tradition, energy is neutral. It's neither good nor bad, just raw potential waiting to be shaped by awareness. Your emotions? They are energy in motion. They are signals, invitations, teachers. And like all energy, they don't disappear when ignored. They wait. They distort. They find other ways to speak. Think of emotional energy like steam. If you cap it, pressure builds. If you vent it recklessly, people get burned. But if you channel it, if you alchemize it, you turn raw heat into fuel, into clarity, into movement. This is the art of emotional alchemy. Not suppression, not indulgence, but transformation. It begins with presence. Next time a difficult feeling arises, rage, shame, panic, pause. Don't name it, don't fix it, just feel it. Where is it in your body? Is it tight in your jaw, hot behind your eyes, heavy in your chest? Instead of asking, how do I get rid of this? Ask, what does this need to become light? That question changes everything. You stop treating your emotions like enemies. You stop trying to escape them. You become a witness, kind, steady, undisturbed. And in your witnessing, something beautiful happens. The energy starts to move. It softens. It reshapes. Anger, once acknowledged, might reveal grief beneath it. Fear, once held without judgment, might shift into intention, a signal that something needs to be tended to, not avoided. This is the core of Hermetic purification. Not a fight, but a transmutation. A remembering that your awareness is the real catalyst, not the feeling itself. Awareness is the fire, emotion is the metal. And with time, pressure, and care, what was once chaos becomes coherence. Let's ground this in practice. You're stuck in traffic. You're late. Every part of you wants to scream, to blame, to spiral. But instead, you pause, you breathe. You feel the heat rising, not to deny it, but to meet it. I feel anger in my chest. It's tight. It wants to move. You let it speak, not out loud, not at others, but in the quiet space of your breath. And slowly, the tension shifts. You might see why you're so upset. It's not just traffic. It's the fear of being disrespected, of losing control. And just like that, the anger becomes a message, not a monster. Or imagine this. You feel sadness, heavy, unshakable, the kind that sits behind your ribs like a stone. Normally, you distract yourself a scroll, a snack, a smile. But today, you don't. You sit. You ask, what story is this sadness holding? And slowly, a memory rises. A moment you never cried for, a loss you never named. You let the tears come not because you're broken, but because you're clearing static from your field. You're letting light reach places it hasn't touched in years. This isn't weakness. This is strength of the highest order. Because anyone can react, anyone can suppress. But to stay, to feel with clarity, and not collapse, that is power. That is sovereignty. So no, purification is not about cleansing yourself of emotion. It's about cleansing emotion of distortion. It's about feeling without fusing, witnessing without drowning, trusting that your emotions don't define you, they guide you. You are not the rage. You are the one who feels it rise and knows how to channel it into motion. You are not the fear. You are the one who hears it knocking and chooses to answer with intention. And you are not broken for feeling deeply. In fact, it is your sensitivity, your ability to feel and still stay open that makes you magnetic, resonant, alive. So the next time emotion surges, remember, you don't have to run. You don't have to fix. Just breathe. Be the fire that purifies, not the wind that scatters. Your feelings are not here to ruin you. They're here to return you. There's a word we throw around too casually. A label we use like a warning sign, fragile, weak, too much. That word is sensitive. You're too sensitive. Don't take it so personally. Lighten up. We've been taught to flinch at our own perception, to harden, to laugh things off. But here's a truth you were never meant to forget. Sensitivity is not a flaw. It is a super sense, a signal that your instrument is finely tuned. The more awake you become, the more you feel. Not just emotions, but frequencies. You walk into a room and something feels off, even if everyone is smiling. You meet someone and, within seconds, you know whether you can trust them not because of what they say, but because of what their field whispers. This isn't paranoia, it's perception, and the Hermetic path honors it. In a world obsessed with noise, the sensitive one hears silence. In a world of distraction, the sensitive one notices subtle shifts, a drop in temperature, a flicker in voice, a tightening in the air. This is not weakness. It is attunement. But when you don't know how to handle it, sensitivity can feel like a burden. You absorb tension that's not yours. You carry emotions you didn't create. You find yourself exhausted by crowds, confused by mood swings, unsure if what you're feeling is even your own. And so begins the journey back not to toughness, but to clarity. Being sensitive doesn't mean being overwhelmed. It means learning to discern. Here's a quiet practice to begin. Next time you enter a space, a room, a meeting, a street, pause. Before speaking, before moving, take a single breath and feel. Where does the energy sit? High and frantic? Heavy and closed? Open and clear? Then feel your own body. Is your breath shallow? Are your shoulders rising? Did your chest tighten? Most of the time, we merge without noticing. We adjust ourselves to match the room tone, down our presence, tense up our hearts. But awareness lets you hold your own frequency, even in a sea of others. This is energetic sovereignty, and it begins with permission. Permission to feel what you feel. Permission to know what you know. Permission to stop pretending you're fine when your system is screaming. Imagine being a lighthouse, not a sponge. You don't absorb the sea, you shine through it. This is not an escape from connection. It's the foundation of real connection. Because when you're clear within yourself, you stop mistaking others' chaos for your own. You can witness someone's pain without taking it on. You can offer compassion without collapse. This is the maturity of the sensitive path. The realization that your gift is perception, not suffering. And yes, the world might call you too much. But what if they've simply grown used to numbness? You were not born to numb. You were born to notice, to tune in, to track truth beneath surface, to feel what others are afraid to name. And in doing so, to remind us all, presence is power. So next time someone calls you sensitive, smile gently. Say, yes, I feel deeply. I listen closely. I notice more than you realize. And silently, remember, this is not your curse. This is your calling. Because when the world gets loud, chaotic, disconnected, we need the ones who still feel. And that is you. There's something sacred about the first breath you take in the morning before the notifications, before the world remembers your name. It's quiet. It's unclaimed. And yet, in that breath, your body already knows. Energy has memory. And you, whether you realize it or not, are carrying some of yesterday with you. For years, maybe, you moved through your days absorbing what wasn't yours. Someone else's stress, a room's unspoken tension, even a stranger's bad mood in line at the store it found its way in. And without tools to hold your energy, you started to mistake exhaustion for just being alive. But there's a softer way to exist in this world. Not by closing off, but by remembering how to stay open without spilling over. It begins with the breath. Not the kind you rush through, but the one that knows how to clear space. You close your eyes. You inhale slowly, like you're pulling light through a silk thread. And then, as you exhale, you let that light sweep gently through you like a breeze cleaning a quiet room. You do it again and again, not to force anything out, but to welcome yourself back. You don't need incense. You don't need ritual chants. All you need is your attention, that soft flame of awareness that says, I see you, I clear you, I'm home. And once you've cleansed, you shield. But this isn't a wall. It's not a bunker. It's more like a glow, a warmth you wear, like a cloak of coherence. You imagine it, wrapping around your skin, a soft shimmer of presence. It doesn't keep the world out. It keeps you in. You don't need to be hard to be protected. You just need to be whole. One woman once wrote, "No one ever told me how to start. I kept hearing protect your energy, but what does that even look like?" Now, I know. And maybe, as you breathe into your own field, you'll feel it too. Not separation, but sovereignty. Not resistance, but radiance. Then comes grounding. And here's the truth. Grounding is less about your feet touching dirt, and more about your spirit, remembering gravity. You could be in a high rise or standing barefoot in a forest, doesn't matter. What matters is the root beneath your thoughts. You imagine it roots curling down from your heels into the deep dark of the earth, not as escape, but as anchor. You let the weight of the world move through you without knocking you over. That's what grounding is, remembering you don't have to carry it all alone. And so, every morning, before the day lays its hands on you, you return. Breathe in, clear space. Feel the shield form around you. Sink into the center of yourself. That's it. You don't do it to keep people out. You do it so when they come close, you're not already gone. This isn't magic. It's maintenance. Not performance presence. Not armor clarity. Because energy hygiene is as vital as anything else you do to survive. And when you care for your field, when you protect your light, the world doesn't overwhelm you. It meets you, steady and bright. You don't need to toughen up. You just need to come home. You don't have to run away from the pain you feel. You don't even have to hurry past it. You simply have to learn to speak with it in the soft, clear language of light. There was a time when I thought sorrow and anger were my enemies. I would stuff them down, distract myself with endless to-dos, or apologize for feeling too much. But eventually I realized, the pain isn't the problem. What creates the suffering is how you relate to it. In Hermetic wisdom, energy is neutral. It's intention and awareness that bring shape. So the anger you feel is not the foe, it's raw heat. And heat, when invited into consciousness, becomes fuel. When held with clarity, it becomes motion, purpose, even peace. There is a practice, a simple trilogy of breath, image, and intention that turns dense energy into light. It begins with breathing into the feeling. Not fast, not forcing, just breathing. You breathe into the body, into the tight places, into the jaws, the chest, the belly where the heat sits. In that breath, you create space. In that space, the charged energy can soften. Next, you visualize. Rather than suppress anger, imagine it as a glowing ember in your chest. Then see that ember bloom into a sunflower of gold light. Let the shape shift. Let the energy transform. You're not fighting it. You're illuminating it. That tenderness, that witnessing gives the energy something it lacked, recognition. And with recognition comes movement. Finally, you stay with intention. You utter silently something like, "Let this transform into clarity and purpose." You don't force direction. You just open the possibility that what once felt destructive can align with your highest intention. It might sound abstract, but I've seen it change lives. One person emailed that she had carried grief for so long it felt like her only identity. Then she learned how to breathe into it, visualize light, and set a simple intention. 3 weeks later, she wrote, "I still feel the sorrow, but now it feels like an invitation, like something wants to be turned into art, into healing, into my own truth." Another recalled anger after a betrayal. For years, she shoved it away. But one evening, in a guided visualization, the ember in her chest turned bright. She let it expand. She didn't try to extinguish it. She asked it, "What do we need here?" The answer came not in words, but in a quiet clarity, truth. And with that intention, her energy resolved. She didn't become calm. She became coherent. Sometimes I ask, if you didn't fear your anger, what would it say to you? Because often when we're afraid, we silence the teacher. Fear turns anger into shame, into resistance. But other times, anger can speak. We were hurt. We need boundaries. We deserve respect. And at the deepest level, Hermetic teaching says, there is no darkness, only light not yet arrived. That means your discomfort doesn't define your story. It simply signals, a new light is coming in. Awareness is that light. So here's what you can do. 1 minute of breathing into the feeling, not avoiding, not rushing, just breathing. A moment of visualization, seeing heat become light, gesture toward a sunflower, a flame, a gentle glow. 1 word, 1 intention, clarity, truth, healing, purpose. If you breathe and the tension stays, that's okay. Just breathe again. If the intention wavers, bring it back. This isn't magic, this is emergence. Because the alchemy we seek isn't about erasing pain. It's about turning it into fuel for your evolving self. It's about meeting grief with agency. It's about letting anger become a guide, not a prison. Imagine your inner world as an alchemist's lab. Your pain enters as raw ore, and through breath, light, and quiet attention, it becomes something refined, a clearer frequency, a steadier presence, a wiser self. By the end of this practice, you might not feel lighter, you might feel more alive, more aligned, more complete. So if you find fear, or burden, or heat in your chest tonight, don't push it away. Ask it to speak. Let your breath translate, let light transform. Because your inner world is waiting for alchemy, and the power to heal was always yours to wield. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. You've heard the quote before, but rarely understood what it truly means in the quiet spaces of your mind. It's not marketing hype. It's not flimsy motivation. It's a law, ancient, subtle, profoundly practical. The law of vibration. Your outer world isn't shaped by desire or willpower. It's a reflection of the frequency you sustain. Think about it. 2 people can recite the same affirmations, "I'm abundant," "I'm at peace." Yet one stays stuck, while the other subtly shifts into new realities. What gives? The difference wasn't motivation, it was coherence. One person's internal field is fractured belief on the surface, fear beneath. The other holds a steady vibration of clarity, even when thoughts wobble. This is why so many feel stuck. They try to elevate themselves to raise their frequency, as if ascending on fumes. But elevation without root is like climbing on shifting sand. That's not transformation, that's exhaustion. The more sustainable path? Return to your natural frequency. Let resonance be your guide. When your internal world is stable, your field becomes filtering rather than vulnerable. Opportunities arrive, relationships align, quiet synchronicities occur. Not because you chased them, but because your energetic presence became magnetic. And magnetic isn't loud, it's coherent. So, how do you maintain that steady resonance? Breathe with intention. Your breath is the metronome of your field. Inhale stillness, exhale tension. Not as a mechanical practice, but as a daily pause. Even one slow breath resets coherence more than hours of forced positivity. Choose your environment as medicine. Notice if a space leaves you elevated or drained. Do you feel lighter or tighter? If the energy dims your clarity, gently retreat. The world isn't always balanced, but you can decide where you willingly enter and where you choose to remain luminous. Shape your discourse with consciousness. Every thought, every internal dialogue has weight. Are you replaying loops of lack, criticism, regret? Observe them. You don't need to force good thoughts. You just need to let the old thoughts fall away. Replace them not with noise, but with openness. Sometimes, the most powerful shift is silence. In Hermetic teachings, this law is not about magic, it's about physics. The field only reflects what resonates. When you interfere with your own signal by desperation or fear, you distort your reality. When you return to a stable vessel, the field mirrors that stability. It's like tuning an instrument. You don't play louder to hear more. You tune until the string hums in harmony. Then the music becomes effortless. Your life becomes that music. So what does your daily life look like when you live in alignment with your frequency? You begin with small rituals, a breath before your first task, a listening pause before you scroll, a moment of discernment before making decisions. These are not rules. They are invitations to remember you exist in resonance, not just in reaction. Imagine you walk into a room or start a task at work. Instead of asking, "How can I make this better?" you pause and ask, "How do I wish to feel while doing this?" And even if nothing outward changes, your field shifts subtly, but powerfully. Your presence shifts what happens. And here's the secret. You don't need to chase frequency. You need to return to the frequency you already carry. You are not an echo searching for a sound. You are the source that gives life to sound. Your work today is not to become something you're not. It's to restore the resonance you already hold. Because when your internal world hums with clarity, the universe doesn't rearrange, it responds. And at that level of resonance, life doesn't chase you. Life leans in. You're not here to become someone new. You're here to remember, not to chase some distant truth, but to gently return to something ancient, something you've always known, but maybe forgot in the noise. This journey isn't about learning. It's about remembering the language you spoke long before words, the pulse beneath your breath, the rhythm of your energy, the stillness that was never broken. You've always been broadcasting. Long before you knew what frequency meant, you were sending out signals, sometimes in fear, sometimes in hope, often unknowingly. But now, you've paused, you've noticed, and that changes everything. There's no need to force a new vibration, no need to pretend peace, just listen. Each breath is an invitation to return to yourself, not as a project to fix, but as a presence to honor. And if energy has always been yours, then so has power. Quiet, steady, and ready when you are. Not because the world finally gave it to you, but because it was never taken. You were never disconnected, only distracted. Now, you remember,